Hello, TECM 5191. Welcome to the Module 5 lecture where we'll be discussing screencasting tools and techniques. Just a quick rundown of the agenda. We're going to first talk about minimalist user assistance, and more specifically, we're going to cover three principles of minimalism. Next, we'll move on to screencasting and technical communication. We'll look at sort of where it stands in modern technical communication. And then finally, we'll do a overview of the video production process. By the end of this video lecture, you'll be able to complete pre-production activities. That includes creating a storyboard and a script. And next week, you'll move into post-production, which would involve things like actually editing things, splicing things together, fixing audio, etc. And so let's just jump in. So user assistance in TECM can happen in lots of different ways, but there's really three sort of major types of user assistance. You'll see a screenshot here on the right of the screen. This would be an example of a quick start guide, but I want to quickly go over user guides and knowledge bases, just so you have the difference between the two. So the user guide is sort of a comprehensive guide for a particular piece of software or hardware. And it's a comprehensive guide, meaning it includes everything the user would need to know to use all of the functionality of the piece of software or hardware. You can think of the user guide kind of like the Zen 4 PDFs that were provided to you in the single sourcing project. On the other hand, the knowledge base is a web-based repository or database where users can search things, search keywords, find connections between keywords. And you can kind of think of the knowledge base as similar to the HTML5 output that you created in your single sourcing project. But what we'll be focusing on for this screencasting project is creating what's called a quick start guide. And we'll define that here in a bit, but the quick start guide is going to be much less comprehensive than, for example, the user guide or the knowledge base. The quick start guide, on the other hand, is going to get the users to begin using a piece of software or hardware immediately. And so the idea is to lower the barrier of entry for a user to actually become productive with the piece of software or hardware. Quick start guides are pretty ubiquitous in TECM, meaning it is a subgenre of technical communication that nearly every software company, anybody that produces anything that an end user will use, will create quick start guides. And there's actually a LinkedIn Learning course by Leslie O'Flanahan that talks about the quick start guide and walks you through some fundamental principles of the quick start guide, and that's included in your reading this week, in your readings this week for Module 5. Quick start guides also are most effective if they use principles of minimalism, and that's sort of what we'll talk about here in the first part of this lecture. So there's really three major principles of minimalism, and the first one is to allow users to start immediately on meaningfully realistic tasks. Right, so I'm sure you've experienced this before, where you've purchased a new piece of software or hardware or any product really, and you open the quick start guide or the user guide. And it describes every single button on the interface, or it describes every possible functionality that the software can do. And that is basically the opposite of minimalism. So when we talk about wanting to embrace principles of minimalist user assistance, we want to basically only provide users with content or information that will get them started on a task. So we don't want to explain to them some conceptual information necessarily, but we do want to focus on meaningful tasks. The second principle is that minimalist user assistance will reduce the amount of reading and passive activity in training. Again, so there is a time and place for a user guide that's comprehensive, that talks through all of the different concepts, all of the different interfaces, all of the different icons and buttons in an interface, for example. But that is not what the Quick Start Guide is all about, and that's not what minimalist user assistance is all about. Rather, a minimalist Quick Start Guide will allow a user to jump immediately into a task and reduce as much as possible the amount of passive sort of consumption of content. And by passive consumption, I just mean a user simply watching a video without actually interacting with the video and or interacting with the software. The third principle is that minimalist user assistance helps make errors and error recovery less traumatic and more pedagogically productive. Meaning when something goes wrong, a well-crafted, effective quick start guide can point out common user errors and allow users to recover from those errors. As opposed to, for example, a user guide that would be more comprehensive and sometimes may require a user to go searching or hunting for the answer or hunting for some kind of recovery, looking at a troubleshooting section, for example, of a user guide. So I've made a couple comparisons to user guides and quick start guides, and really the main takeaway here is the quick start guide is going to not be comprehensive. It will only cover things that are meaningfully realistic, and it will allow users to get started immediately, to start engaging with the software, hardware, product immediately. So now that we sort of have some foundational ideas of what the Quick Start Guide is, I'm going to move on to part 2 here, and we're going to talk about the importance of screencasting and technical communication. So there is a company called SAP, and they do all kinds of things in the financial world. That's really kind of beside the point, but they're a huge company. And their company had probably, I don't know what the exact number is, but it's more than 30 million documents in their sort of repository of user assistance, which is a ton of documents. And as they started to grow as a company, and as they started to think about end users and providing services and support for end users, we see in 2018 the Vice President of User Assistance, Sven Lukert, says this quote. It says, "Today we deliver user assistance packed with videos and interactive graphics." Right? So they started as sort of what a lot of companies did, which was sort of documenting things in a more traditional way. As of 2018, their VP of User Assistance has sort of pivoted or transitioned to video and interactive graphics as a means to support their customers. So I just point this out to just say how sort of, again, ubiquitous video user assistance is in technical communication. Some advantages of using video user assistance. One, people tend to watch them, right? So maybe not with full attention always, but they tend to watch them at least much more than they would be willing to read through, for example, a print user guide or even a print quick start guide. Number 2, product managers love them. They allow they allow end users to interface and engage with products, again, with a low barrier to entry, right? So it allows the content creator to illustrate visually what a user should be seeing and doing, and what the result should be, and that's something that is a net positive for a product manager, right? So a product manager might be in charge of creating a perfectly functional product, a perfectly effective product, but if end users don't know how to use it, that product ultimately fails. And so these video walkthroughs of user assistance are particularly helpful in that context. Okay, now that we've seen how sort of ubiquitous video is in TECM, and we've seen sort of some of the biggest players in TECM transitioning to video, let's take a look at analyzing a few videos for our minimalist principles. So just to remind you, we've got 3 principles of minimalism. Principle 1, allow users to start immediately on meaningfully realistic tasks. Principle 2, reduce the amount of reading and passive activity. And then Principle 3, help make errors and error recovery less traumatic. I'm not allowed to actually show you video embedded in this video. So I will post a link to these videos in both the YouTube comment section and also the Canvas page that will house this video. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to watch the video, pause this video that you're watching now, watch the Getting Started with Trello video, and then we'll come back for a short discussion. Okay, welcome back. So we watched a video on sort of this taco truck team, and it kind of walked through a few things on how to get started with this taco truck team. Now, if we look at and think about the main principles, principle 1, I would say that this video doesn't do a great job in allowing users to start immediately on meaningfully realistic tasks. Rather, what this video actually does is it actually covers a lot of conceptual content. Right, so it talks about what a card is and what a list is and why you would want to add cards to different lists, and so it does give the user some context about some conceptual information, but that conceptual information isn't actually that helpful in getting someone immediately started on a meaningful task. So if we wanted to get someone started on a meaningful task, we would have to start the video with some procedural or task-based content as opposed to conceptual content. Just as an aside, oftentimes conceptual content actually serves as marketing material, right? And so this Watch Getting Started with Trello video is almost more effective at marketing than it is at getting someone started on a particular task. Principle 2, I thought the video did poorly in as well because there was quite a bit of passive activity. So there wasn't really any tasks for the user to do other than to try to understand what a list is and try to understand what a card is and some of the other terminology that's used in Trello. The third principle, help make errors, not really relevant in this situation. And really the main reason why it's not relevant is because it didn't really walk through any task-based content. Right, so it was mostly conceptual content, and so because it wasn't walking through step by step sort of how to accomplish or complete a task, there wasn't really room for the narrator or the content creator to even make mention of any errors that might possibly occur. Now we're going to look at one more video, and this one's a little longer. The last one was 2 minutes. This one's 6 minutes. So thank you for your patience, but I'm going to ask you to go ahead and watch it. And the video is called How to View Trello in Google Calendar. And this is created by someone outside of Trello, so it's not actually created by Trello themselves. But nonetheless, it is a video tutorial video, so I thought it was a good example. And just the same as we did last time, think about these 3 principles and how well this video follows each of the 3 principles. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you to pause the video at this point and watch the YouTube video, the second YouTube video. Okay, so now that you've watched the second YouTube video, let's quickly talk about each of these 3 principles. So did the video allow users to start immediately on meaningfully realistic tasks? I would venture to argue that the answer to this question is mostly. Right, so I guess it depends on how you would define immediately, because there are about 30 seconds of conceptual information at the beginning of the video, right? So it talks about sort of the concept of adding or the idea of adding Trello deadlines immediately to your Google Calendar. It does start in with procedural information right around 60 seconds into the video, so it takes about a minute to get into the procedural information. Principle 2, reducing the amount of reading and passive activity. I would argue that this video both passes and fails this principle. So there's some situations where I think it does reduce the amount of reading and passive activity, and in particular, that would be in the procedural information, the procedural section of the video. However, there is quite a bit of conceptual information in the video that, again, helps provide context, but might not be necessary in getting a user to immediately engage in a particular task. So I would say with Principle 2, it does an okay job in some spots and not a not so great job in some other spots where there is actual passive consumption. And then finally, Principle 3, there was a section in the video where the video creator talks about how if you don't set a specific time, that it will default to 12 o'clock, I believe, onto the Google Calendar. That's actually a really helpful example because it provides a typical error that a user might encounter when trying to accomplish this task. And it depicted it in the video itself. So with Principle 3, I think, it did a fairly good job with Principle 3. So Principle 1, they did okay. Principle 2, they did maybe a little worse. And then Principle 3, they did a pretty decent job. So this is an example of a video that follows some of the principles, but not all of them. And as you're thinking through this week and you're thinking about screencasting and thinking about your own projects, maybe start to think about what are some ways that you think the people that put together this particular video walkthrough could have made it even more effective and more minimal in its presentation. Okay, now that we've looked at a couple examples and we've analyzed those examples for minimalism, I am going to move on to talking about the video production process itself. So we really split up video production into 3 separate activities. There's pre-production, so stuff that you do before you actually start shooting the video. So that would be things like your goals, your story selection, your script and storyboard, your location, what people and equipment you need to line up to produce the video. So that's all going to be in pre-production or planning. The actual production will be setting up your environment, getting your audio and video equipment, and actually recording the voiceover for the procedural information. And then in post-production, that's when we would add things like music to the beginning and end. That's where we would add transitions between sections of the video and also remove maybe parts of the video that need to be edited out. And that's where we would render or process the video for delivery. And by render, that means taking the actual video and exporting it as an MP4 video file. Some really basic mistakes that are often made in video walkthroughs or video tutorials is extraneous content, right? And that goes against, obviously, that minimalism principle number 1 of getting someone started on a task immediately. And so that's one to look out for. We want, within seconds of a video beginning, a user to be engaged and ready to accomplish some task. Unplanned narration, right? So part of what I'll ask you to do is to actually write a script and stick to your script. And one of the things that often novice video content creators and really in presentations, like live presentations, is unplanned narration. So kind of the worst thing you can do is start to ad-lib and improvise, because it will often be lead to extraneous content and will often lead to confusing your users even more. Third, unpredictable lighting and background noise. So again, think about your physical environment as you're recording. I know that not all of us have recording studios in our houses, but the best we can, try to find a quiet space with enough lighting if you are actually shooting video that's not a screencast. And then finally, insufficient disk space. So what could happen if you start recording, especially in Camtasia, is that you could run out of space and you could record, 10 minutes of content, and at minute 2 it gets cut off or something because you've run out of disk space. So those are some things to think about as you are in the pre-production phase. So let's quickly talk about a couple different deliverables that you'll create in the pre-production phase. So the first will be the script. So why would I want you to include a script? I think you can probably infer the advantages of a script, but I've included some advantages here as well. How do you actually create the script? Well, one, I would ask you to use conversational style, right? So not overly formal. So talk to your audience. So you can say things like you should do this, or and make it conversational in that it feels like you're actually communicating with the person who is using the video tutorial to accomplish some kind of task. Secondly, edit. So your video requirement is, I believe, 90 to 120 seconds. So this is 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, meaning you can't have a super long script. You want to get to the most important tasks and focus on those. And then finally, ask for feedback, right? So as you're writing the script and testing the script and even practicing the script, it's helpful to get feedback from someone outside of the project, someone who doesn't have much context in the project. They'll be able to give you feedback in terms of, like, does it make sense for us to jump into this task, or does this task connect with a previous task, for example? And so that is a couple tips for the script. The next thing we'll talk about is the storyboard. So both the script and the storyboard actually can be actually placed in the same document. And you'll notice here on the left, I've included, again, some advantages of using a storyboard. Again, you probably inferred those advantages, but I've just included those for you as well. But how to actually accomplish or complete the storyboard. First, you would illustrate a frame, meaning what is the screen? What is the actual visual content that a user will see? And you would take a screenshot and you would put that here in the middle of the storyboard. Then you would describe directions. So specifically in the left column here, we've got all of our directions that are described, that describe what is happening on the screen. So in this example, search Audacity software on Google and click the Audacity team.org link. And then it also describes movement, right? So type Audacity software in Google and select Audacity team.org link. So that this also indicates, like, this is what you actually need to be doing. The last thing that's included in the directions is approximately how long this particular frame will be on the screen. Then finally, the script is going to be the voiceover, and that'll be here in the third column. And the voiceover will be an actual just script of what you'll say over this particular frame. And you can kind of see in this example, the first two frames are provided in this example as just as an example for you. So on the production side of things, once you complete pre-production, which is what we're working on in Module 5, you'll work through actually producing the video. So what you'll need for production is you'll need software. In this case, we're going to use Camtasia 2020. I've provided you with a link to download to either Mac or Windows. You can find that link on the Canvas assignment description page. And on that assignment description page, you can also find the license key. And so that'll give you the full license to Camtasia. As you're recording, there's a couple things to think about. One is make sure you're removing visual clutter, right? So if you're taking a screencast of your computer, maybe clean up the desktop, maybe clean up the taskbar at the bottom of the screen if you're on a Mac, for example. Make sure you turn off notifications so emails aren't popping up in the middle of your, or instant messages aren't popping up in the middle of your video recording. And then the second thing to think about is to use traditional video aspect ratio, which is 16:9. And usually I do all of my videos in 1080p, and that would be the aspect ratio of 1920 by 1080. Okay, so those are settings that you can set up sort of automatically in Camtasia, but those are things to think about as you prepare to actually produce the screencast. Other things to think about in production. So you're going to need a quiet / uninterrupted room. And just so you all know, if you're on campus, in the Willis Library, they have soundproof rooms where you can record podcasts. And they have high-end microphones you can check out. It's all free. You just have to reserve a time. It's super easy to reserve a time. So head over to the Willis Library website, and you can actually reserve everything on the website itself. But you'll need a quiet room. You'll need a microphone. And, you know, I'm using a fairly high quality microphone. But, you know, you could use just a simple USB computer mic, and that's going to be better than your native sort of ambient microphone that you would find on your laptop or computer. And so you'll need a microphone, and then you'll need some software, right? So something to record. I'm recording this in Camtasia, and so you know you're going to be using Camtasia for post-production. You might as well record the actual video in Camtasia as well. A couple things about the delivery of the script. I've included 5 tips here, and I'll just focus on a few that I think are particularly important. So the first is going to be to read ahead and practice. So before you shoot the video, it's always good to kind of walk through the video, do a practice run. It's only 90 to 120 seconds, so can't hurt to do a practice run. Believe it or not, if you smile while you're delivering a script, that nuance in your voice and in your facial expression actually gets translated into the audio. And then finally, consider recording with a vocal scratch track, meaning you can run the video tutorial with a vocal track, like kind of live, as you're doing the video. So as you're showing the different movements and tasks that you're doing on the screen, you can also be recording the audio live that way. And then, if you wanted a cleaner sort of execution of the script, you could always remove the vocal scratch track and re-record your audio over just the video. And by doing the scratch track, you've got the timing all set up. For each frame. And you can replace the audio if you'd like. Again, that's not a requirement, but consider it, especially if you have a hard time multitasking, right? So walking through the video tutorial and then also reading the script and walking the user through the different steps. Post-production, which we'll talk about specifically next week, and you'll use most of module 6 to complete your video tutorial project. You'll need software. So again, Camtasia in this case, and you will do a variety of things in the post-production process. So I've included 6 here, but you may add well more than 6 of these tools and techniques. So you want to choose your audio or video. You want to make cuts, right? So if there's somewhere where you stumbled or that doesn't make sense or needs to be redubbed with audio, you'll do that in post-production. You'll sync your video with your audio. So again, if you're not recording live, if you're recording your audio after the fact, make sure that it syncs closely with your video, or vice versa, right? So I've seen people actually read the script and then sort of retrofit the video to the audio. I don't recommend that. I've never felt like that made logical sense to me, but I've seen people do it. I think it makes more sense to simultaneously shoot the screencast and record the audio, and then re-record the audio if you need to. Number 4, add visual markers. So these are things like transitions between sections, or maybe even title slides or title transitions between sections. You can add things like intro and outro music. Make sure that there is an open source license that you're using. You can actually go onto YouTube, and they have a sound library that is all royalty-free music that you can include in your video. And then finally, you'll render and share the video, which is as simple as exporting the video as a 1080p video in Camtasia. Okay, so this week, this module 5, we covered minimalist user experience, or user assistance, I'm sorry. We also talked about 3 major principles of minimalism. Getting started immediately on a task, allowing a user to reduce passive time, passive consumption, and then also helping users with any potential errors that might occur in using the software. So we talked about minimalist user experience, user assistance. We talked about how screencasting is essentially ubiquitous in TECM and is one of the main sort of ways that we interact and help users and assist users. And then we walked through the video production process from pre-production to production to post-production. So I'm excited for these projects. This should be I think, in my opinion, the most fun projects of the semester, because you get to produce a video, which I think is pretty cool. And so I hope you enjoy this project, have a good time with it, and as always, just shoot me an email or a Slack message if you've got questions.